Hey everyone, I'm going to show you how you can install Kubeless, the Kubernetes native serverless framework, into your OpenShift cluster. If you haven't heard of Kubeless before, it's a serverless framework for Kubernetes, and it stands out from other solutions because it uses a lot of Kubernetes internals, such as the third-party resource, um, and each function that you create is actually a custom resource, and it runs in your cluster as a controller that watches on these third-party resources and launches the runtimes on demand. So we'll see all this in action. Let's go ahead and install Kubeless. So you can go ahead and look at the releases page and you can grab the CLI for your OS. And then you can go and grab the Kubernetes resources to go and install in your cluster. Now, there is the Kubeless OpenShift YAML, and this is really for if you're on OpenShift 1.5. But if you're using Kubernetes 1.6 or OpenShift 3.6 or greater, then you should use the Kubeless RBAC. And the reason is that the RBAC policies are slightly different in OpenShift 1.5, so that's why this manifests here. So we'll go ahead and create this. So this is going to create a bunch of resources in my cluster. If I go to the Kubeless namespace here, you can see I've got a Kafka, a Zookeeper, and the Kubeless controller is kind of the main piece. If I go to the pods here, these have already started up and are running. So I can actually go ahead and create functions now. I have an example here of a very simple function. If I take a look, it's a Python function, and it basically just takes a request, prints the JSON, and returns the JSON. So this is an HTTP function. So we can go ahead and run kubeless deploy. And we're deploying a function called hello. We're passing in a file here. The handler is the package name and or the file name and the function that we're running. We're using the Python 2.7 runtime, and we're stating that this is a HTTP function. So we'll go ahead and create that. So we should see that Kubeless, or the Kubeless controller, has gone and created a pod in the default namespace for my function. So you can see this running here. And I can go ahead and call this function by running kubeless function call, and we'll pass it some data. And what's happening is Kubeless is setting up a port forward and then sending an HTTP request to my pod. And you can see it basically has just returned the JSON that I sent it. And if I take a look at the logs for this pod, it's in the default namespace, you can see that it's gone and printed out this request as well. Now, what if I wanted to just directly call this? Well, Kubeless sets up a service as well. So if I take a look at the serverless service in the default namespace here, I've got a service called hello, and I can access this over the Minishift API, the Minishift IP. So if I do curl Minishift IP and use this port here, and then send it some data. We'll see that once again, it's outputted that again, and if I take a look at the logs again, we'll see that we've got that output here again as well. So there you go, that's Kubeless in a nutshell. Would be interested to see what functions you end up creating. There's actually a functions repository in the Kubeless org where you can actually go and contribute functions that might be useful to multiple people. And if I show you in the incubator folder here, this is where the example that I pulled from. And Kubeless itself is also open source in the Kubeless repo, so definitely check it out. We'd love to get more contributors and have you try it out. Thank you for watching.